All right, cool. I'm seeing nods. So awesome. I'm seeing yeses in the chats. So the first thing I want to do, and I do want to make this as participation friendly as I possibly can. So the first thing I want to do is right now, just find the chat if you haven't already. Click on there. And how's your day going so far? How's your morning so far? How are things? Just feel free to write some answers in there. This just gets us moving. So write some answers in the chat, send them in. So how was your day so far? I got TGIF just started. A bit hectic. I get that. Thank you. It is Friday. Friday is awesome. All right. So we have an all good. Lawrence is great. Crafty. I'm not even sure what that one means, but I like it. Beautiful sunny day. I'm getting so excited by the weather where I am now. On the East Coast of the US. So New Jersey, New York area. So it's finally getting warm. Amanda says good so far. Wanda says going well. Gonna have your coffee. I've had a bunch of mine already. So, and one of the reasons that I start off this way is I do want to, sitting on a sunny patio. That's awesome, Jamie. So I'm envious of you. So one of the reasons that I start this way is that I do want this to be useful for you. I'm going to show you some things along the way, and hopefully this is helpful for each of you. But really, I want to make this as interactive as we possibly can, even if it's through the chat. But at various points, if I ask a question and you want to jump in, jump in. I have set ideas for, what I think would be helpful, but I'm more than happy to personalize it for you. So, and in that vein, I want to start off with two questions, and same thing, just go to the chat, type in your answer, and type as many as you want. So what I want to do right now is I'm going to start with a sentence. So everyone in this room, listen to that sentence. I'm going to end it with a blank. And then in the chat, just write whatever you want. It can be a word, it can be a phrase, it can be good, it can be bad, it can be in the middle. It's totally up to you. So here's the sentence. Artificial intelligence is blank. So artificial intelligence is blank. So in the chat, write some responses. And again, it can be whatever you want. Amazing. It's here. Scary. Unreliable. We can definitely come back to that. It's a big question. Helpful. Polluting. Yep. So big questions about what it does for the environment. Necessary to learn about. Not a human. Innovating. Intriguing. Interesting. A great supporting tool. I love that one, Bruce. Awesome. Ryan says misinformative. Yes, I have to be very, very careful with that. Jen says a parrot. Amanda says interesting and new. Yeah, I get that. All right, augmentation. Awesome. We can definitely talk about that. I'll talk about it in terms of augmentation and creativity. Dynamic. I love that one. Dione. Anyone who's been following this tech at least a little bit knows how quickly it's changing. And then Wanda says Terminator. So a lot of the things that I think people are thinking about now are the movie Terminator and the movie Her, right? So those are the kind of the two movies that I see brought up in conversation a lot. And Tara says a time saver. So awesome. So it's really, really helpful. One of the things that I think all of us probably noticing just seeing those words pop up in the chat is how different our emotions are. So some of us have positive emotions, some of us has negative emotions. A lot of us, myself included, have mixed emotions. So depending what we're looking at, depending what we're thinking about, it can cause very different emotional responses to bubble up. And I'm not going to push that aside. I think that's huge. I think that's really, really important to think not just about what we can do with this technology, but how it makes us feel, right? Those emotions are essential too. All right. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give you same kind of thing and write in the answers in the chat. And here it is. So Chat GPT. So that's a lot of what many of us have heard about. So in the chat, if you've never heard of Chat GPT ever, if you don't know what I'm talking about, type in a 1. All right, just put in the number. If you kind of know about it a little bit, write in a 2. And if you've used it quite a few times and feel pretty comfortable with ChatGPT, write a 3. All right, so we start with a bunch of ones, which makes sense. All right, so now we're getting a roll of threes. Awesome. 2.5. Great. Yeah, feel free to play with the numbers however you want. Gail says 2 to 3. Cool. Ranges are awesome. Cool. Svetlana says 2 to 3. Jennifer says 1. Awesome. So, and if you didn't get a chance to write them in, please just feel free to keep them coming. I'll kind of see them as I'm talking. So one of the things that I think is true is that if you go into a room of any number of people, there's a huge range. So regardless of where you are with learning about AI, you are not behind. So some people, so many people haven't used the technology at all yet, and that's okay. We are just at the beginning of things. So don't feel like you're far behind. There's a lot of time left to figure out what this technology is doing. I think there's all this sense of urgency, which I get, and I think it kind of pushes a lot of us, but I don't want anyone to feel behind. And even just seeing those numbers, 1 to 3, it was pretty even, right? In terms of who's never heard of it, who's used a couple of times, and who's used it a lot. So what I'm going to do, and I'm going to try to stick to the 45 minutes as much as I possibly can, is I'm going to back into ChatGPT a little bit. I'm not going to start there because one of the things that I want to focus on is creativity. And I want to think beyond just something like ChatGPT or whatever else heard of. We're going to get there. Don't worry. But I just want to show you a little bit about the creative side of AI. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to share my screen. Oh, is it possible? So it's saying that it has disabled screen sharing for me. Is it possible to enable that?
Yes, let me do.
Cool. Oh, yeah. And Jen says, when you first looked into AI, it was kind of like taking a sip of water from a fire hydrant. Yep, I get it. I don't think that experience has kind of changed. I think I'm constantly in this state of just feeling overwhelmed and not really feeling like I'm always playing catch up. And that's a universal thing, right? If you feel like that, I think we're all in the same boat.
Sorry, Jason, give me 1 second. I'm amazed.
Nope, you're good. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to jump as they're working on that. I'm going to give you a little bit of a heads up of what I'm about to do. So if you would like to play with it on your own, you can play with it on your own. And then once I can share my screen, I'll be able to kind of show you what this can do.
Georgina, can you make me the host? I can't change the settings at the back end.
And Breen, do you want Jason to be the host right now?
Make him the co-host.
Okay, Jason, you
All
are
right, what I'm
now.
about to do. Sorry, go ahead.
You're a co-host now.
All right, cool. And there you go. Awesome. Thank you. All right. So I'm just going to share my screen. And so, as I mentioned before, I'm going to kind of back into ChatGPT because I want to focus a little bit on creativity. So, what I'm going to do right now, and I'm going to make sure I share my sound. Otherwise, this is an AI program called Suno. And this is just meant to start the conversation and to hopefully get you excited. I want to start with fun before we think about, more structured ways of working with this technology. So in the chat right now, everyone take a few seconds, write in a genre of music. Anything you want, just pop them in there. Country, synth pop, electronic, 80s, jazz, dance, disco. That's what I see. All right, I've seen jazz twice. Awesome. Seen jazz twice. And pop I've seen a couple times. Canadian fiddle. That would be fun. Indie rock. Jamie says you've seen it before. Yeah, to make a song about Donald Trump farting in court. Okay, yeah. All right, cool. And so we have someone who's already used it before, so this will not shock Jamie at all. So Suno, and let's see. I saw jazz twice. That was the first one I saw repeated, so I'll stick with that one. So Suno, what it allows you to do is it allows you to create songs, right? And we'll talk about what happens when we do this in a minute. So, all right, so we have a jazz song, so we have the genre, and now what should the song be about? Type in something in the chat, type in some ideas, and I'll just pick one. Cool. Summer, spring. All right, cool. So a lot of weather stuff, sunshine, Fridays. I like that one. Cool. The moon. A mouse's trip to the beach. I like that. It's so specific. All right. All right, cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a mashup. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to go into Suno. I'm going to do a song description. All right, so a jazz song about a mouse. What was it? What was the idea? It was going to the beach. Where was he going? Yep, a mouse's trip to the beach during the summertime. All right, so kind of took the idea of summer that I saw 3 or 4 times in the chat and that very specific narrative. All right, I'm going to hit create. And I'm going to let it just do its thing. So you're going to see in the background that you're going to see that wheel. It usually doesn't take much more than a minute. But you can see I've been creating songs and basically seeing what these feel like. And it is done. So I'm going to go through and click on it. And there you go. So you have an image associated with it. And this is what it created.
It's the middle of July. A little mouse named Charlie setting out to fly. He's got his tiny suitcase packed with all his things, ready for a vacation where the seagulls sing. He hops on a sandcastle, his little heart's a beat. With each and every wave, he feels the summer's heat. In his tiny sunglasses, he's soaking up the rays. Oh, that little mouse, he's having beachy day. He builds his castle high, right there in the sand. A little mouse oasis where he'll make a stand. He takes a dip in the ocean with a little splash and splish. Oh, that little mouse is living out his summer wish. Oh, that little mouse is living out his summer wish.
All right, so as this was playing, I'm sorry if it didn't come off, if the music didn't come out quite as good. Apparently it stopped sharing the sound in the middle, which was weird. But hopefully you got a sense. I reshared it, so hopefully you got a sense of what it sounded like. So, and I started to see in the chat some comments, right? Is this cheating, right? What is this like? So actually what I want to do is I want to open the chat up. So what are some thoughts about this as you kind of see this do its thing? What are some ideas? I'll stop sharing my screen for this part. All right, so Maria just claps. Yeah, Bernadette asked, kind of cheating, isn't it? And yes, what I showed you is the free version. Someone asked that as well. Yeah, where's the human voice in it? So the singer is generated, and the question is from what? Honestly, we know just very little about whose voice is being sampled. Right? This is Carrie's question, right? Is there a copyright issue here? Right? So big question. So right now, the idea is that it doesn't violate copyright, but there are a lot of lawsuits about this sort of thing. So who knows? Yep. So Laura says, I'm an artist. I'm leery about this. Jim says, give credit to the AI. Yeah. And Rogue says, if it's based on existing music, how will innovation happen? Yeah, and feel free if you want, continue to pop in comments, spur some ideas. It just says AI can't take credit, and it can't copyright for non-humans at this point. Yeah, and this is there's a set of legal questions that honestly are still being worked out now in terms of what this kind of technology means. So what I really want to focus on here is when we have AI that can do something like this, which is fun, right? Which is fun to play with and be able to create something, a song with a few basic words from us, a basic description of us. What does that mean for creativity? What does that mean for humans just, being able to innovate, being able to take new approaches? And one of the things that I'll kind of emphasize is that I think a lot of the way forward is to think about creativity as a lot of it happening through human and machine collaboration, right? That there are ways to be creative with this technology. And then it's just a question of how. And one of the reasons that, I start with this is it is a fun thing to play with, that you can create something, whereas in the past, you might not have had the training to do that. And you can see, I'm going to go very quickly to my library. You can create all different kinds of songs. So you can go and, for example, right? So we did the jazz one. You can certainly do something like
In a
this.
world of codes and circuits, we're
So this gets a little bit more to the pop
unlocking
feel.
mysteries with innovation supreme. With a generation ready to break free. With AI and automation, a new reality. In the halls of knowledge, we're wired and connected. Learning's on demand, no longer restricted. From virtual classrooms to digital frontiers, we'll revolutionize the future, no doubts, no fears. We're wired, ready, breaking through the mold. With AI by our side.
All right, and that's just giving you a sense of how diverse it can be, right? So if you give it different instructions, if you give it a different style, a different topic, it can spin things very, very quickly. And in the chat, Rebecca asked a huge question, which is, when we have AI that can do something like this quickly, right, with this little prompting, what does that mean for valuing human work, right? What does that mean for what we do? And I personally think, and people can disagree with this, and that's perfectly fine, I get it. I think that a lot of it is going to be thinking about where the human is in all of this and how we can work with technology to serve our own purposes, serve our own ideas. And that's where the human creativity comes in. So that again is Suno. And another program I'm going to show you, and this again, I'm going to try to stick to the 45 minutes. I've been talking for about 20 minutes, and I want to give a little chance that people hop in here and there, and I'll continue to do that, is I want to show you one more program, which is, again, meant to just show you where a lot of this technology is going. So if you're anything like me, you're giving presentations, and you're creating PowerPoints. So this is a program called Gamma, and I will very quickly, now that I am stopping. And yes, Bernadette, you can use it to create a vinyl sound. You can do that. You can give it more and more description. That's where kind of the human side comes in, right? Being able to look at something, listen to a song like that, which is really just a first go, figuring out how to tweak it, how to change it, how to revamp things. And also a lot of what musicians are doing are trying to figure out how they can create their own sound and then use AI for certain things here and there. And then that becomes a kind of hybrid song, right? Part human, part machine. That's one of the directions which music is going in many ways. So anyway, and I just popped this in the chat. And anything I'm showing you is free. I'm not going to show you anything you have to pay for. All right. So this is Gamma. And I'm showing you this because it could just make your life easier. And again, you do not have to pay for this, right? You get a certain number of credits and it's pretty reasonable. All right. So I'm going to go into Gamma and I'm going to hit click with AI. And so this is meant to help you out. If you struggle with just creating PowerPoint slides. Right, so I'm going to hit presentation and I'm going to just put in a topic. So I'll do using AI in the workforce. All right, we'll keep it pretty basic. You can give it more information. I'm going to hit enter and you can see that it generates its own outline. And this is where the human comes in, right? It's going to create something that's pretty generic. So you might say, this is okay. Introduction to AI in the workforce. Actually, I don't want to do that. Right, I'm not going to start with that for whatever reason. So you can edit, you can change things in and out, you can personalize it. AI and automation, I'm going to get rid of that. Right, upskilling and AI, I'm actually going to move this up. Right, so you can play with it however you want. So I want to start with the upskilling and reskilling. Right, so you can move things around, you can edit things. Oh, and I have people coming in, so I'm going to admit them. All right, so you can play with it however you want. And then when you feel good with it, you hit continue. And then you can scroll through on the right a bunch of different options. So I'm just going to hit one. And I'm going to hit generate. And this usually works pretty quickly. And there you go. So it's going to create in front of us a basic PowerPoint presentation. Now, one of the things that I'll emphasize as we go along is that I don't actually think this is replacing the human because there's a lot that now needs to happen, right? That you go through. And it is done. All right, so I'll hit present. Go to the very beginning. And it's okay, right? It does an okay job, right? It gives some basic things here. Oh, it created an AI image, so I'm going to pop that out, right? Sometimes those don't work all that well. But it gives a slide of benefits of AI in the workplace, challenges of implementing AI, right? And so it gives an okay starting point. And actually with this program, you can export it directly into PowerPoint and edit however you want. So really the power here is using AI if you're someone like me who struggles with just the layout of PowerPoint slides, and then you can come in and add your own angle, add your human feel to it. Because there's a lot that's left out here. I might go and say, well, I don't really love this one. It's a little bit generic. I can make it more specific. And you can cater towards your own individual audience. And that is, for me, human creativity in the world of AI. Being able to know our audience, figure out how to take something and actually cater it to them, right? Because AI is not going to know that as well. All right. And then, yep. So, and feel free to continue to pop credits in there, or sorry, pop questions in there. So Jennifer asked, how would you cite this in your PowerPoint that you use this? So you can actually, a lot of times what people do is they just put it at the end, right? And in fact, if you just go and you export it into PowerPoint, it'll have a little label saying something like made with Gamma. So that's actually doing part of the work for you. So you don't have, so it's very clear to people that you created it using an AI tool. So anyway, I did promise that I was going to get to ChatGPT. So I do want to end there. And I have about 20 minutes left. I don't want to talk the entire time. So ChatGPT. And again, I'm not going to show you anything that isn't for free. So if you go into ChatGPT, and again, maybe I'll do that. I will go and pop the link in the chat. So you can sign up for a free account. Oh, and I'm glad you like the resources, Andre. I have more if you ever want to reach out to me. I don't want to overwhelm you, but I do want to give you some things that are sort of fun to take a look at. So I just popped the link. If you have never used ChatGPT, you can hit that link. You can sign up for a free account. And at the very top, you'll see a couple of options. So 4 is the paid version. So I pay for it. You do not have to. So just ignore that. Pretend this is not here. What you will see is you will see 3.5, which is the version that's been free for a while. And then you will see the 4.0. That is today one of the most advanced forms of AI available entirely for free. Don't have to give them any money, anything like that. You can play with it. And so if you haven't played with it, one of the first things I recommend doing is just clicking on something that's on there. So they actually learned to give you a couple of options and just test it out, right? So here, write a story in my favorite genre, right? So you can just click there and just play with it, right? And you can see what it did for you. So write a chat, right? Wrote a message saying, let's dive into crafting a captivating short story. Can you start by asking me what my favorite genre is, a theme or element I'd like included? And that's exactly what it does. So it just follows your lead, right? And so you can go and say something like crime story about a mouse at the beach during the summer. All right. So I'm just going to stick with our theme. All right. So, and it's going to do that. It's going to create it. Now, one of the things that you will notice if you play with this technology enough is that when you just give it basic information like this, it's going to start off pretty generic. Right. So it knows it has a little bit of information. It has basic information about the story. It knows that I want to focus on a mouse at the beach at summertime, and it knows the genre. But other than that, it's going to have to just guess. And one of the things that I will say about AI is it's not magic, like at all. Don't think of it as magic. This kind of technology is very similar to autocorrect. So if you go through your phone, start writing a text message, it will basically try to guess, try to predict what the next word is. So you write a word, it tries to give you a recommendation for the next one. You can choose one of those, do your own, right? That sort of thing. Something like ChatGPT is doing the same kind of thing. It's just bigger. So instead of trying to guess the next word, it might be guessing the next sentence or the next paragraph. And instead of having, say, 3 options or 5 options, it might be choosing between a million different options. And that's where the space of creativity comes in. So that's where we as humans really, I think, direct this technology. Because I do think, and I know I've mentioned this once or twice before, that being creative with this technology means trying to figure out what the human can add, right? And what the machine can add, and try to figure out how we can use this technology best to our advantage. So it's less about human versus machine and more about human and machine, right? So trying to figure out if there are gaps in what we know and what we can do and how we can, if we want to, use AI to fill them. And I'm going to very quickly pop in the chat so that I'm not losing anyone. All right. Yes, and Amber mentioned it was released this month. Yes. So the 4.0, so the more recent one, I think it was released about 2 weeks ago. All right. It is very, very new. Yeah, Lizzie says, yep, last week. All right. So it is brand new. So if you haven't used it before, or if you were just using the free version, you got a huge upgrade. So what I'm going to do right now, because I've been talking for about 30 minutes and I don't want this to feel lectury at all, is I want to hit pause. And I'm going to actually pop out of screen share. I'm going to hit pause and I'm going to hand it over to you in the chat, or if someone wants to talk, what are your ideas? So I've given you basically 3 programs. So I gave you Suno, so generating music. I gave you Gamma for generating PowerPoints. You can actually generate websites as well. And I also gave you ChatGPT and showed you how you can ask it to create a story for you. So what are your thoughts? Feel free to pop them in the chat. And they could be good, bad, in the middle. Any ideas or questions about the technology? Yeah, Angela says, where does AI get its knowledge from to put these things together? It is one of the big and open questions. So we know a little bit about it. Essentially, these programs are using the internet. So if you go in and you use ChatGPT, it's been trained on the internet as a giant data set, right? A giant collection of information. But sometimes this has gotten better, but sometimes it's difficult to figure out exactly where it comes from. And one of the words that people threw out there when I asked, AI is blank, people mention it being misinformative, right? You need to fact check it. You need to go and you need to make sure that what it is doing, what it is giving you is accurate. And that is certainly true. Right? One of the things that ChatGPT can do is make it feels really confident when you're reading it, right? It looks like a good answer, but you have to make sure it actually is. All right, and let's see what other people, because I don't want to. And yes, Gail, you can create your own outline in Gamma. You can create your own, so you can actually create your own outline. You can also just upload your own document. So if you have a Word document or a PDF, you can upload it to the program and it will help you convert it into either a web page or a document or a PowerPoint. All right, Jennifer asks, how do you use ChatGPT with your students? So I use ChatGPT with my college students very, very frequently. And the main way that I use it is as a thought partner. So for example, I teach writing with my college students. And so I, like many of us do, focus on argumentation. So I teach my students to find information, synthesize it, and then come up with an idea, an argument, a thesis, whatever you want to call it. And so traditionally, what I did, as many of us did, is I assigned an essay. I had students write an essay announcing an argument, supporting that argument, da-da-da-da-da. And so one of the ways that I've switched that up with AI is, instead of doing that, if a student is comfortable, I ask them to use ChatGPT. And I give them a prompt. And it's a pretty long one. Some of them read it, some of them don't. But what the prompt does is it asks ChatGPT to act as a contrarian. So it takes another side, right? So a student pops in an argument, whatever it is, and the AI, because of that prompt, will take the other side and try to poke holes in their argument. And I ask my students to engage with it in a debate, right? So instead of just writing a paper when it's one and done and he hands it to me and that's it, they debate with ChatGPT. And then at the end, they link just the entire thing, right? Because there's a button on the top of ChatGPT that allows you to share the link. So I can see the entire chat. So I can see, and I learn way more from that. So what I can do is I can see how a student is actually engaging with another side of the argument. And that it focuses on similar skills, argumentation, debating, whatever they are, but it switches it up, right? And it gives me more information than just writing a traditional essay. So that's one way I've done it. Yes, and Marlene mentioned brainstorming with a friend. That's how I think about it. That's how I think about creativity with these tools, right? That if you're doing something like, say you're using Gamma to create a PowerPoint, I think it would be a mistake to just use what AI gives you. I've never been even close to doing that, right? There's so much more. It's really taking care, at least for me, of a lot of the grunt work of, deciding what the slide's going to look like, what the formatting is going to be like. And so I can really focus on the content. So it allows me to what I focus on. I can focus on what I want to focus on. All right. And Roxanne saying, oh, cool. Yeah, you've been using Diffit. Yep. So using creating readings and worksheets. Awesome. Oh, Bernadette mentioned or asked, how does AI deal with cultural differences? So that is something that we have to be very, very careful of. So I'm going to say some things about AI. One, if you do use it, be aware of the possibility of misinformation. So they're called hallucinations, errors, depending on who you listen to. Be aware of it. Make sure you're really paying attention and reading closely whatever it's giving you. And then also be aware of bias, right? And this comes to the question of cultural differences. So it's been trained on the internet. And the internet, as I think most of us know, in a very visceral way, is not, if you take it as a whole, a place of objective information, right? It's going to be trained on particular kinds of writers, particular kinds of speakers, because it's just based off of scouring the internet, basically. And so be aware of that. So right now, Bernadette, it hasn't done a great job with it. that is getting better. They're finding ways to make it more accepting and inclusive, but it is definitely something we have to think about. And I'm going to get at least a few more here because then I want to wrap up because I know that, we have to go on to other things. Yep. And yeah, we always have to think about ethics. We always have to think about the laws, right? And they're changing all the time. All right, cool. And I think I got most of them. I didn't want to pop over anyone. So where I really want to land, and this is my way of kind of wrapping it up because I know that it's around 10:43 now, and I know you want me to wrap up at like 10:50. So I do think that is important to think about where innovation and creativity fits in this context, because I think that one of the best uses of this technology isn't to replace humans at all, right? I think that is a fear, and I think that is a real fear, right? And we can think about that and should think about that. But I think that one of the best uses of this technology is really in a personal way. So thinking about what you like to do, what gets your creative juices flowing, right? And from there, if there is a program to make the not things that don't have you excited, that can make that a little bit easier. So for example, I showed you Gamma, right? So creating a PowerPoint. One of the reasons I like to use that is I hate making PowerPoints, right? Going through the process, choosing those templates, which often they never feel like mine anyway, and then trying to figure out what it's going to look like. I have to do all this kind of work that doesn't excite me. It doesn't interest me in a real way. But I am interested in the content, right? That allows me to kind of fast forward through the basic, just choosing the format, typeset, all that stuff. So I can actually look at, well, what do I want to get across in my presentation, right? And that's what gets me excited. That's the creative part. So I use Gamma. And I get it, right? If they're interested in the design, in the graphics, and many people like creating PowerPoint presentations, so they wouldn't use that for that. And that makes perfect sense. So I think that the best approach is going to be personal. There is no one way to use this technology. It really is just a matter of figuring out a couple things. One, if you can use AI to make things easier. And two, is there a benefit in you doing that thing? So it is sort of tempting to try to offload anything that feels unpleasant. But thinking from a side of creativity and professionalism, sometimes we need to just do that thing, right? So for example, it might be tempting to use AI to write an email to a customer, right? To write an email response to a customer, and it can make things much faster, can save you some time. But sometimes you really just need to read and write that email, right? Because you want to know about your customer, you want to learn. So I think it's a matter of balance. I think it's a matter of figuring out what we can offload and what we shouldn't offload. And I do want to start to wrap up, and people can continue to write comments in there. But the last thing I want to show you, and I will share my screen to do this, and then I'll hand it off to the next person, is my QR code. So on the screen, and I can send this along too as a link. So if you scan this, if you have a minute, you can do it on your phone. I'll also, again, I'll pop in the link so you have it. This is my contact information. So if you want to reach out to me, you're more than welcome to do so. I don't want this to feel like a one and done deal. I recognize that I gave you a lot of information in a pretty short amount of time. So if you're still thinking through something, you want to ask me a question, on here, I have some resources to help you out, which might help you out, might not. But you also, on there, you have my email, you have my phone number, right? You can reach out to me. I'm more than happy to continue these conversations. I recognize that it's a big conversation, and I just gave you, a couple ways that I hope were fun and I hope were interesting to kind of see. But I really just focused for now, and this is me handing it off to the next person. I really focused on fun activities to kind of just get your feet wet. All right. And then there are different ways to think about how we actually engage with this technology. So that's my QR code, and I can send the link in the chat later so that people can go back to it if that's easier. And that was it. I want to wrap up and hand off to the next person. So thank you so much for engaging with me. Feel free to keep writing in the chat. I'll try to look at that for a little bit longer and respond to things. But thank you so much for participating, and I hope this was useful.
Thank you, Jason. Yes, but I think some of us want to engage in those creative AI tools, and they're free. So for those that are new or those that just want to try it again, lots to learn. Thank you, Jason. So we're now up to our second facilitator, and it's Lindy. And Lindy is started her career in a technology-equipped classroom, where she first blended teaching with technology. This sparked a journey into her world of supporting educators, encompassing roles in instructional technology, professional development, and curriculum design. Over the last 10 years, her consulting work has taken her to schools across the world. These experiences have given her a unique perspective of K-12 education and have been instrumental in her ultimate goal to support classroom teachers in delivering transformative learning experiences. This goal is to capture in her new book, A Teacher's Guide to AI, and A Teacher's Guide to Online Learning in her daily work. On a typical day, Lindy can be found assisting educational technology companies to meet K-12 educator needs and facilitating hands-on training for educators. Her work often is referred to Lindy Touch in most regarded areas. This has led her to be named 2023 EdTech Trendsetter. She also holds several EdTech certifications, including Google for Education Certified Trainer, Microsoft Innovative Trainer, Educator Expert and Master Trainer, and Minecraft Certified Trainer and Ambassador. Lindy is based in Bozeman, Montana, surrounded by beautiful mountains and her dogs. Lindy continues to improve her mission and to improve the learning experiences for all. Thank you, Lindy.
Awesome. Thanks, Georgina. So first of all, can I get screen sharing privileges turned on? And then second thing, I know we had on the schedule a break until the hour. Do we want to take a break while I get kind of set up and transitioned? Or do you want me to jump right in on Breen, Georgina?
We can take a 5-minute break. I was just checking the agenda as well. So
Okay. So
let's
you want
take
to
a 5. Yeah.
come
And
back like 5
yeah.
till?
Yeah.
Okay,
Fi-
5 till the hour. We'll take a
5
break.
to the hour. Yeah.
That'll give me a chance to get set up and we'll get going. Go fill those coffee cups. You're gonna need it. No, I'm just kidding. But it is Friday.
Lindy, are you able to share the screen
I
now?
am not. No, it's still
Okay.
saying
Georgina, could you make her the co-host?
I've made you the host now.
Okay.
It's still saying disabled on me. No, it's still not letting me. It still says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Now it should be.
Wait. Yep, something just clicked. There we go. Let me figure out which screen I want to share here. Okay, it looks like it already got pinned me. So good there. All right. So if you are there, I'll repeat this once we get started, but we're gonna use quizzes, a tool called Quizzes to kind of make this interactive. You'll get a chance to answer some questions and interact. I will put the link in the chat. I would either open this on, if you have like a dual screen, open this on your second screen. Or the other thing you can do is I'll put a QR code up and you can scan that QR code and join from your phone. There are some kind of drawing activities, so that can be kind of fun. You can use the touchscreen on your phone, or if you have a tablet like an iPad. So a little bit up to you. I will share my screen so you'll be able to see everything from my screen up here. But then the interaction piece will happen from either another window, another device, just depending upon the setup that you have going on today. Also, you don't have to interact. If you just want to watch my screen and participate that way, that's perfectly fine. Choose your own adventure in terms of how you like to learn. So I will do two things. I'll put the link in the chat. Oh, there you go. See, we have Alicia just joined. So you can always click the link that I just put in the chat there to join, or I will open up this full screen here. You can scan that QR code, and to scan QR codes, if you've never done that, you just open up the camera on a smartphone or a tablet, and you just hold that camera up, and it'll say, you know, like open in Chrome or open in Safari, depending upon what web browser you use, and then boom, that link will open right on the device. It's pretty handy. I hear people joining. Hear the little click, click, clicks. If you're there while we're waiting, let me know in the chat if you've used Quizzes or not, if this is a new tool to you. New tool, awesome. Never used. New. Great, this will be kind of a double whammy for most of you then. Heard about it, played with it a while ago, but it's been a while. It's changed a lot. They've added a lot of really great features. They have some really great accommodations that you can set up as a teacher. Anyway, that's the goal of this session, is not to learn quizzes, but it'll be kind of a double whammy that you'll get to experience quizzes from the student perspective and see if it's a tool you want to use with your students. Yeah, agree, Jason. I am totally with you. Says it wasn't very good before, but I'm excited that they've revamped it. Yeah, I agree. There are so many of different these types of kind of formative assessment, quizzy type tools out there. Blooket, Kahoot, just to name two of many. And I agree, Quizzes was kind of like okay, but I actually was at an AI conference last month in San Diego, the air show, and they had a booth there, and I popped in and they're like, oh, hey, you got to see all these changes and accommodations that we've added. And I was like, oh, I need to check this out. So you guys are going to be also kind of my guinea pigs today of using the new revamped Quizzes. Yes, Kahoot versus Quizzes, I don't know. I'm a Quizzes fan now. I used to use Kahoot, and Kahoot still has its place, but Quizzes just gives you a lot more types of questions. 5 more seconds. Okay, and I know that might not have been enough time for you guys to finish your questions. Thanks for your answers. Thanks for being good sports there. So let's see. Bruce says, use 2 pieces of bread side by side, spread peanut butter on the left and jelly on the right, and then put both pieces together and devour it. So if I were a computer and I was repeating these instructions, you did not tell me to open the jar of peanut butter. So I'm going to take that peanut butter jar and I'm going to stick it right on top of the piece of bread. And I'm going to do the same with the jelly. And then I'm going to put the 2 together. Okay. This one's Victoria, you've got pretty detailed here. So select 2 slices of bread. Well, right there, if I'm a computer and you tell me to select 2 slices of bread, you're assuming that the loaf of bread is pre-sliced, right? So what if I have an unsliced loaf of bread, just the full loaf of bread? Already, my whole instructions are done. I'm gonna take that butter knife. It says select peanut butter and jelly. Okay, it says open the jar. So now we have the jar open. Using the butter knife, apply peanut butter to 1 slice of bread, but I don't have a slice. She didn't tell me to slice the bread. So I'm just gonna start plopping that peanut butter over the top of the whole loaf of bread, right? So the point here to get you to think about is that traditional computing that we have been mostly using, 95, 99% using over the history of computing in humans, is rules-based. It does exactly what you tell it. So if you have an unsliced loaf of bread and you don't tell it to slice the bread, it's not going to slice the bread. It doesn't know how, right? It's going to do exactly that. If you have a jar of peanut butter and you don't tell it to take off the lid, it's not going to take off the lid. If you tell it to spread the peanut butter, but you don't instruct it to grab a knife, then it's going to maybe use its theoretical machine hand, right? To grab that peanut butter and flap it onto the bread. So it does exactly what we're telling it. And this has been how we've approached computer science, coding, programming in the past, is that we create step-by-step instructions for computers, and those computers repeat those instructions to the literal T, okay? Now, I told you that AI is very different, and here's where it gets very different as a technology, is that we're moving from rules-based computing, traditional computing, to intent-based, all right? And what do I mean by intent-based? Intent-based is this idea that the AI learns. It learns from itself. So if you forget to tell it to slice the bread, it's going to go, oh, but every other example of PBJ I have in my data set has sliced bread. So maybe I need to take this loaf and slice it. Or I didn't tell you to open the jar of peanut butter, but I see that it's not the jar of peanut butter on the slice of bread. It's the actual peanut butter. So I know that even though you didn't tell me, I need to take the lid off of that jar. Okay, so that's the key difference. That's rules-based versus intent-based. We have this idea of data and the AI learning from data. And Jason explained it well, that it's making predictions. Okay, so it is determining, like I loved that analogy of autocorrect. That's exactly what it's doing, is it's predicting what's the next step, what's the next word. Okay, and in the process of creating a PB&J, it's identifying patterns and then saying, oh, okay, I see from this that next I need to spread the jelly on the other slice of bread. So now what I want you to do, and this might be a little bit tricky, we kind of got into this in Jason's section, I'm kind of getting into it now, is, so just do your best is my point. How would you teach an AI to assemble a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Draw the process. So this is a draw question. So again, just do your best. Have fun with it. And if you have no idea, just guess. Throw something out there. So now we're moving from creating step-by-step instructions for a machine to actually teaching an artificial intelligence how to assemble a PB&J sandwich. And while you're doing that, I'll kind of check the chat here. AI already has that knowledge, eh? Yes, exactly, Bruce. You were ahead of me there. Yep, rules-based versus intent-based. Honestly, if I were to give like no other foundational knowledge about AI, it's understanding that key difference is so huge. Oh, I love it. Umbrine's like, you know what? I'm going to ask the AI to give me instructions on how to create a PB&J. That's exactly. So now we're at this place where we can take the AI, have it create the instructions, and then feed it to rules-based computing. So what is that doing to programmers, software developers, right? There were lots of questions in the last session. What does this do to artists? What does it do to musicians? What does this do to programmers when AI can create those rules-based instructions? All right, 30 more seconds. I've only got a couple brave people here. Let's see. All right, let's look at the responses and see how we did. We're not judging your drawing skills, I promise. Oh, these are great. I love it. So, okay, let's take Melissa's example here. Let me zoom in. Let me make this bigger. There we go. So she's got what I'm assuming are slices of bread here. I'm assuming this is like a butter knife. You've got jelly, peanut butter, right? So this idea that we're giving it data, we're showing it all the pieces involved of how to create peanut butter and jelly. Svetlana has a similar thing. I'm assuming these are like bread. Got arrows showing the steps of how we create. Awesome. I love it. Very good. Thank you guys for being good sports there. Okay, so the key takeaway here is that, like I said, AI has this data set and you're feeding it all of this data. And then you're using that data to train the AI to learn from itself. So if we were teaching an AI to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, we would feed it tons of images of bread and different types of bread. It needs to see white bread versus whole wheat bread. It needs to see an artisanal bread loaf versus a store-bought pre-sliced loaf of bread in a plastic sack, right? It needs to see instructions. So Ombring gave this great instructions she got from AI on how to do that. Well, where do you think it got those instructions? From all sorts of different instructions. So all of those steps that you wrote out on how to create a PB&J sandwich would be fed into the data set for how to teach an AI to create a PB&J sandwich, right? We would want to give it videos showing the process of taking the sliced bread, maybe slicing the bread first, getting that butter knife, opening the jar, taking it, spreading it, right? So there would be videos showing the process. And then another thing is it would want to know about different types of nut butters. So nowadays, I should have just said a nut butter and jelly sandwich, but that doesn't have quite the same ring. We have lots of peanut butter allergies, right? So people have almond butter and cashew butters, right? So we'd want to see all those different types. It would want to see natural peanut butter that separates and needs to be stirred first. It would need to see jellies versus jams, strawberries versus grapes. And it's going to take all of that data and it's going to make inferences, right? To know that it doesn't matter that this is an orange colored apricot jam versus a purple colored grape jelly. It all becomes the same purpose and gets sliced or spread on one slice of bread. I should have added to this slide, in addition to text, images, videos, you might have audio, might be part of your data set, right? So audio explanations explaining how to make PB&J sandwiches. All right, so that kind of explains the main difference between traditional computing and kind of where we're going with AI. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty of AI knowledge. So next question, what is a large language model or LLM? This is a multiple choice question, so pick one option. Do your best if this is new to you. It's very hard to draw under. Do your best. Be a good sport. It's fine. I think that's my last drawing question anyway. Okay, let's see. Oh, let me get out of there. Hold on. Here we go. Oh, I love it. All right, so the correct answer was number 2. AI models that are trained on very large data sets to comprehend and generate human language. So this term of LLM is really important to understand because this is what's driving the majority of AI technologies today. That could change tomorrow because the technology is moving so fast. But I still think that large language models are going to be a huge part of AI technology for the foreseeable future. Who knows in the not foreseeable future if LLMs will be part of it or not, but it is right now because what LLMs do is they take that huge data set. And when we're talking huge, I think Jason explained this well when he said, imagine the literal internet. So the ChatGPT you got in and used in Jason's session, its data set is like the entirety of the internet. That's how much data it has that's driving it, right? It takes that huge data set, but the technology of the large language model, and there's lots of different technologies that make this work, is what allows you to talk to it in a human way and have it talk back to you in a human way, okay? So the key thing to understand about large language models is every AI chatbot out there currently has a large language model, or sometimes multiple large language models that are working in the background that drives it. So I actually need to update this slide because Jason explained that last week, ChatGPT changed and sent out a new large language model called GPT-4o for Omni, brand new. So it's not even on this slide. That's how new it is. So that shows you how quick this technology is moving, right? So before last week, the free version of ChatGPT, if you didn't pay the $20 a month and you just went and created an account, used a large language model called GPT 3.5. The paid version used a large language model called GPT-4. If you've ever used Claude, which is Anthropic's AI chatbot, if you haven't, I highly recommend. I'm a big fan of Claude. It has, if you use the paid version of Claude, it actually has 3 different large language models that you can choose from. And then the idea is that they balance cost, performance, and speed. So Haiku is free and it's super, super fast, but your outputs maybe aren't quite as great as what you get with Opus, you have to pay for. It has the best outputs, but it's really slow. But if you can be patient and wait for its outputs, it's an amazing writer, for example. And then they have what's called Sonnet, which is their large language model that tries to kind of hit the middle of the road of balancing cost, speed, and outputs. So it's going to be faster than Opus, but you're going to, not quite as fast as Haiku, but you're going to get better outputs than Haiku. If you're using the free version of Claude, you can choose between Haiku and Sonnet, for example. So why do you need to know this? Why am I throwing this all at you? It's because understanding that every large language model, every AI chatbot, has a large language model that drives it, will help you understand how the technology works, but also help you evaluate that technology. Understanding that every large language model is trained on a data set and that data set is different helps you understand that everyone is going to be different. So I bounce around between all of we're up to about I used to say the big 4, now we're up to kind of the big 5 AI chatbots out there. I use ChatGPT and Claude the most. ChatGPT is a workhorse. It gets down to business, it gets the job done. I told you that Claude, especially Opus large language model, is an amazing writer. So if I'm wanting it to write something great, I'm currently writing my Teacher's Guide to AI book or help me with a blog post, I'm probably going to go into Claude over ChatGPT now, just because it gives me much better writing, better writing outputs than ChatGPT. Understanding that, Claude isn't currently available in Canada. Bummer, I didn't know that. Dang it. Really? Oh, that's so sad that Claude isn't available. Hopefully it will be soon. Understanding that those large language models drive our AI chatbots helps you understand things like bias, for example, which is what we're going to get into next. Okay. Yeah, so sorry about that. I did not realize that Claude was apparently it's, I don't know if it's US only, but it's not available in Canada. But yes, so Sarah said Gemini. Gemini is Google's AI chatbot. You can check out Gemini. Meta, you'll have to see if you can access Meta AI in Canada. It's another one. It just came out in the last month to 2, so it's fairly new. Which one am I missing? ChatGPT, Claude, Meta, Gemini. There's a 5th one. Oh, Copilot, Microsoft's Copilot. I'm like, I know there's a 5th one, Microsoft's Copilot. Those are kind of the big 5 AI chatbots out there right now. And like I said, I kind of bounce around between them because they're all just a little bit different depending upon that large language model that drives them, the data set behind that, how that data set is trained, etc. Oh, Bruce, you're ahead of me. Thank you. Couple people ahead of me there. All right, moving on. I'm not seeing any. Oh, thank you for mentioning Pi, Jason. Pi is really fun. So Pi, it actually talks to you. So I'm doing an AI training for sales people in a couple weeks, and we're actually going to use Pi as a way to simulate sales conversations. So that might be a really great one for you guys as literacy practitioners, especially if you have English language learners, and maybe that's your goal. I know you guys have very, very, very different jobs. I've been working with Alpha Plus, so I have a pretty good sense of the Canada literacy spectrum now and how different your jobs can be. But maybe that's one of your roles. And you can actually have Pi talking to them and simulating conversations. The new ChatGPT that just came out last week also has voice, FYI. I haven't played around with it much, but that's another option too. Another one, if you really want to get into the craze of AI chatbots, is Perplexity. Perplexity actually does a good job of giving citing sources is kind of its goal. So if you're interested in that, that's another one you can check out. All right, I better move on. So next question for you. True or false? Which of the following are limitations and or concerns of large language models? So now you know what a large language model is. You know kind of how they're created. Let's take a second and think about what could be limitations or concerns of that. All right, so there are three options: knowledge cutoff, bias, hallucination. Get out of that. Or all of the above. The correct answer, all of the above. So concerns and limitations of large language models, let's break this down. Knowledge cutoff means that because AI, the current AI and large language models are trained on data sets, that data set is limited. So whenever that data set was pulled, no new information gets added to that data set. So anything that happened last week, last month, isn't going to be in that data set. And so the other important part about understanding large language models is because every large language model has a different knowledge cutoff depending upon when that data set was pulled. So a major limitation of large language models is it doesn't know current events, doesn't know anything after that knowledge cutoff. Bias, we've already kind of hit this on the head. There were questions in Jason's session, but what about, is it culturally responsive? Does it understand different cultures? The answer is it completely depends on the data set, what it was trained on. So a perfect example of this, last week I did a training for some teachers based in California in the US. And I was actually having them experience kind of what I call like an AI friendly assessment or an AI copy and paste proof assessment. So they were kind of going through the student experience. We were learning about Impressionist art, and I used a tool called Magic School or Magic Student to set up a chatbot where they were actually able to talk to an artist from the Impressionist movement to learn more about the characteristics of Impressionist art. Immediately, two different people said, "It's only giving me male artists." And I'm like, all right, everybody, stop right here. Perfect teaching moment. That was a perfect teaching moment to explain the bias behind AI. AI only knows what its data set is, and its data set was mostly male Impressionist artists, because what do we mostly learn and hear about? Monet, Manet, right? From the Impressionist movement. We don't hear about female Impressionist artists very often. That's an example of inherent bias from an AI system. There's a lot being done to combat this on the AI creation and development side, but it's a huge thing to understand as an educator, as a limitation and concern of AI. Hallucinations. I saw a note in the chat that said hallucinations, question. What's a hallucination when it comes to AI? It means that basically, and I think Jason said this in his session, he said, AI will just sound like it knows what it's talking about. It is very confident. AI on a scale of 1 to 5 gets a 5 on confidence. So a hallucination is when the AI sounds like it knows exactly what it's talking about, and there's no way that this information I'm giving you is not correct. That's called a hallucination, where it's just certain that this is exactly what it is, but you know, you're like, That's not quite right. That's called a hallucination. And depending upon the large language model, depending upon that training process, the data set, all the steps involved in that training process, some large language models hallucinate more than others. There are certain ways that you can work with your prompting, which is what Violet's going to talk about in your next session, right? Is prompt engineering. There are certain things to understand with prompt engineering that might cause hallucinations more than something else. So for what you to understand as an educator is that it happens. It's becoming less frequent. So even just in the last year and a half, ChatGPT was released in November of 2022. My instances of hallucinations in ChatGPT are way less than they were at the beginning. Because again, it learns from itself, right? It's getting better. They're constantly putting out new large language models that are better, that they've worked through things like bias and hallucinations in the training process. But it's a definite concern and limitation to be aware of. Jason says, I wish I had ChatGPT's confidence sometimes. 100% I wish I did too. Okay, I'm just checking the chat here before we go. Oh, good. Okay, so Jason's kind of talking about hallucinations here. Very good. All right. Next question. I think this is our last one, and then we'll be to our end in mind of our rules of thumb. So this is a multiple choice. You can pick as many as you want options. You should never upload which of the following into public large language models: personally identifiable information, proprietary information, confidential information, sensitive information, or none of the above. Multiple choice. So you can pick as many as you want. 5 more seconds. Okay. Awesome. I love it. So many right answers. So the correct answer was all of these. So you should never upload personally identifiable information. That means any information that identifies another human being. Now, if you want to put your personal information in there, it's your personal information. It's your data. You go for it, right? But other people's, and specifically other people's being who? Your students, right? So you never, like, you could put a first initial, but never put a first name, or especially a first name and last name, birth dates, addresses, right? Anything that links information back to a specific human. You don't want to put into a large language model. Confidential information, right? So depending upon, I know the US has laws, FERPA is one of them. Canada has laws. I can't remember the exact, I did look into them, but I can't remember the exact name right now. That say, like, you can't give out personally identifiable information or confidential information. These two kind of go hand in hand, right? Any specific information about people, students, you never want to put into a public large language model. And I should specify what I mean by public. Any of those chatbots I listed to you are public chatbots. The only time that you might not have a public one is if your school board, organization, whoever you work for has said, hey, we've set up a private large language model or a private AI chatbot. Unless you've heard that from your organization, and that's happening very little, starting to become more common, but very little in education right now, then you never want to put that confidential information in there. Proprietary information. Now, if it's your proprietary information, you can decide if you're comfortable putting that in. But just remember that when you put information into an AI chatbot, so for example, last week, GPT-4o was released. That large language model has taken all of the input that anybody put into probably the first 6 months, I'm guessing, I don't know that for sure, first 6 months of using ChatGPT. Any information that was put into ChatGPT now becomes part of the data set for that new large language model. Okay, so that's why you want to be careful with proprietary information. So anything that's proprietary for like your organization that you work for, you want to be careful with. And then finally, sensitive information. Again, any specific information about students, definitely never put any medical information about students into a large language model, anything like that. So we have arrived at our destination. I told you at the beginning that the goal here is kind of give you some foundational knowledge to lead up towards developing some rules of thumb for navigating AI as an educator. And I'm actually going to flip to the next slide, because on that slide, there is a link to open up that infographic, and I will grab that link and put it in the chat as well. There we go. There should be no new information here. So number one of our rules of thumb for AI, let me actually open it on this tab so we're seeing it. Maybe, there we go. So number one rule of thumb, exactly what I just told you. Never upload personal identifiable information, confidential, proprietary, sensitive information into public large language models, like ChatGPT, like Gemini. Number two, be aware of those concerns and limitations. So we talked about knowledge cutoff. You should hopefully understand now, you understand a little bit more about how large language models are created, what that is and why it's important. Hallucinations, bias. And then finally, always fact check, right? Know that AI hallucinates. Model critical thinking to your students, critical thinking and verifying the information that AI gives you. All right, let's see. I've got like 3 minutes left. So let me pause there and check for questions. Violet says, is it safe to write a resume in an LLM? Great question. So I would say if it's your resume, again, it's your information. Your information that you're putting in there, use your judgment. What do you feel comfortable with? A lot of, especially right now as we're learning the technology and it's changing all the time, is your personal comfort level with AI, right? So that would be my answer in terms of creating AI for yourself. If you're maybe, I know a lot of you might teach your students how to create resumes. Having these conversations with them and making sure they understand the limitations of AI and understand that if you're using a public large language model, most likely that information is going to be used to train a future large language model. Are you comfortable with that? And opening that up and never requiring it, right? Based upon a student's personal comfort level. I think that's important. Hopefully that answers that. Other questions, add them to the chat.
So Lindy, there will be a Q&A after all facilitators have presented. So there might be some more questions at that time.
Perfect. Yep. I just thought I'd just make sure there were no anything lingering out there because I threw a lot of information at you. Lots of terminologies, but hopefully that helps kind of demystify a bit. Okay, one more question and then I'll pass it over to Violet. Is there one AI platform to use first with lower level students? Oh, great question, Bernadette. And I'm assuming you mean lower level, like more kind of like, ages 5 to 10-ish. The answer is anything that you use, make sure it's approved by your school board, by your organization. But there are lots of kind of school-friendly or kid-friendly AI tools coming out. One of my, oh, you meant adults. Okay, sorry, I heard lower level and my mind went to more elementary. There is no right answer, Bernadette, and I know that sometimes frustrates people because I'm like, I just want to know. The answer is, what has your organization or school board approved for you to use with students? And the other answer is, what's the right tool for the job? And that's, like I said, it's a lot of experimenting and playing around and learning what the different large language models are maybe good and not good at, is kind of where we are with the technology. Awesome. All right. That is my time. I'm going to pass it on to Violet. Like Georgina said, we've got Q&A I'll stick around for if you have more questions for me. Thanks for having me. Hopefully that helps give you, I know that's not the most exciting information to give out, but hopefully that helps give you a good foundation for your personal AI literacy so that then you can teach your students AI literacy.
Thank you, Lindy. No,
Thank
very informative and interactive with quizzes, and we'll all play around with it. So we don't have a break this time round. We have Violet coming up, but I will introduce Violet. Violet Craig Innes is a prolific multimedia artist and educator based in Toronto with a rich history in the arts and technology fields. They hold a diploma in fine art from Emily Carr College of Art and Design, specializing in media studies, and also a diploma in applied audio recording from the Audio Recording Academy. Over the years, Violet has assumed various roles, including senior rendering artist at BBB Architects and audio podcasting instructor at Workman Arts through CAMH. They have worked with prestigious organizations such as CBC Music. Recently, they have expanded their expertise by studying prompt engineering and artificial intelligence under Dr. Jules White at Vanderbilt University Online. In addition to their professional appointments, Violet is also an accomplished musician and DJ, having performed across venues and festivals. They are deeply involved in community service, contributing as a volunteer in the Toronto Gay Football League and as a referee for the Flags of Glory. Violet's dedication to fostering creativity and community engagement is evident in their diverse career and voluntary work. Welcome, Violet.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm going to see if I could share my screen. Not yet, so I need to be given the host. You are now the host. Okay, great. Okay, just give me 1 second. So welcome to my prompt engineering workshop for literacy practitioners. I bet you're wondering why there's cookies everywhere. Well, we wanted to make this fun and playful, and I think there's nothing more fun and playful than that day that you get to learn how to bake cookies in your home economics class. I think it's probably a little bit more fun than computer science. Thank you so much for that introduction. That means I don't really have to tell you too much about this, but today I'm hoping that I will have ChatGPT self-confidence and be able to teach you with the enthusiasm of the Cookie Monster about cookies, or well, at least about prompt engineering. So we don't need to go through my my slide here because you've already heard all of it. There are many top large language models out there. It's kind of like comparing ovens. We just want to bake cookies today. So we are going to use ChatGPT 3.5. It's free. You've already installed it because Jason got you to play with it. So I'm hoping to make this a very noisy chat and get you playing around with some of these prompts. It's kind of like think of it like a Meccano set or like different recipes. Yeah, let's think of it more like recipes for cookies and the way that you can combine them and make an infinity of different types of cookies. So yeah, this is a list of the top large language models that I Google searched a couple of weeks ago. I bet if you went out there and did that same Google search that this list might be different. And as mentioned before, Claude, it's not available in Canada yet. I wasn't able to test anything, but the prompts that we're going to be learning today are universal to any large language model. One of the links that I put in there is a set of index cards. I did it as a PowerPoint presentation, but you can print them out on index cards just like recipes, keep that. I always love things on index cards. That's how I learned how to play piano. So today's objectives is to understand the concept of prompt engineering and its relevance to literacy instruction, explore different types of prompt patterns and their practical applications in teaching literacy skills, learn effective strategies for designing prompts, gain some hands-on experience in crafting prompts, explore how large language models can enhance learner engagement, facilitate personalized learning experiences, and support skills acquisition and literacy. And we're going to reflect upon the potential challenges using prompt engineering in literacy education. And hopefully you will leave this workshop with practical insights, resources, and strategies to incorporate prompt engineering effectively into your practice. So let's just demystify that prompt engineering term right away. I like to call it crafting prompt patterns because I'm an artist, and I kind of like to just steal some of that sciency-ness of it and make it more like an art form. A prompt pattern is a structured format or template used to generate prompts for a natural language processing task. These patterns provide guidelines for crafting prompts that elicit specific types of responses from the artificial intelligence language model. Prompt patterns are designed to facilitate effective communication between users and AI systems, guiding users in providing input and helping AI systems generate relevant and accurate outputs. Linguistics and understanding the nuances of language and how it is used in different contexts is crucial for crafting effective prompts. As a literacy practitioner, knowing how to craft prompts is going to enhance your ability to create engaging and individualized learning experiences for your learners. Design prompts that stimulate critical thinking, encourage creativity, and foster active participation in literacy activities. Personalize learning materials to suit individual learners' needs and interests, promoting a more dynamic and interactive learning environment. Large language models can provide instant feedback and support to learners. And mastering the art of crafting and refining prompts empowers you to harness the latest technology to enhance literacy instruction. So what can you do with prompt engineering as a literacy practitioner? Well, I had a little conversation with Anne Breen and came up with a wish list of the things that you might want to be able to do with this. So as a literacy practitioner, knowing how to craft prompts will help you to create individualized learning literacy programs, activities related to a learner's needs and learning style, literacy assessments, training plans, instant feedback for learners. And if you're using one of the higher numbers of GPT, like 4.0, you can create custom GPTs. And ultimately, this is going to allow you to teach generative AI fluency to your learners. So that's something I'm really excited about, is that this knowledge is going to go out there into the world. Here are some of my best practices before we dive into it. Before you even start typing, break things down step by step, work incrementally. Think about the peanut butter and jelly sandwich example that Lindy made. Even though you're working with a natural language, large language model, you still need to break things down step by step and work incrementally. Provide all the necessary context or information to accomplish a task. Provide, we didn't plan this cooking analogy. No, we didn't. But I don't know. That's how I teach. And it provided me with a nice visual backdrop instead of computer stuff. Do not expect the output to be perfect or error-free on the first or second or even third run. Always review everything for accuracy. We know that large language models aren't so great with facts. I can tell you as a teacher of audio that I've tried to make quizzes for my audio students, and GPT didn't know the difference between normalization and compression. Those are heavy audio terms, but I had to correct it myself. And it's a good thing that I have a diploma on the wall in audio recording, because it might have just slipped right past me. Don't expect the large language model to be a mind reader. You need to be very specific about your goals, constraints, needs, etc. And I'm going to give you 3 words: brevity, economy, and efficiency. And definitely economy and efficiency, because, on the outside, this looks like a frictionless technology, but it's not. Somewhere down the wire, there are hundreds of graphics processor units all lined up in a supercomputer, and they're getting very, very hot. And so some air conditioning units are blasting them, and this is taking up lots of electricity. And somewhere farther down the line, there is a nuclear power plant. Or some kind of power plant that's generating all the electricity to run these supercomputers. So being economical with your words and efficient with your words is not only going to cost you less tokens that when you create an input and send that to the large language model, but you're also helping to use the tool more effectively and efficiently in terms of the bigger picture. A little bonus thing, if you are using GPT 4.0 or any of the large language models that allow you to upload a file, there would be like a little paperclip logo or something similar to that to connote that. Anytime that you ever try to upload a file into a large language model for analysis, always ask it first to read and explain the document. And that's a way of verifying the data, okay? And then before you move on to other tasks. I've given you a link. This was the textbook basically for the classes that I've taken in prompt engineering with Dr. Jules White. It is a prompt pattern catalog to enhance prompt engineering with ChatGPT. You can ignore the ChatGPT part. This scientific paper was indeed written using ChatGPT. It's in artificial intelligence history terms, it's really old because everything is moving so fast. But what I could say to you is this is a great document that will get you started with prompt patterns. They're not all the prompt patterns in the world, but they are the basic molecules and bits and pieces. And I'm going to try and teach you a few of those today. So that link was in the chat, and I also put another link to my Google Doc. I hope that some of you can get that, and that is the index cards. Sorry about the access to the Google Doc. I will make sure that that the resource is given to Ambreen and that everybody will get it after the class. I'm sorry about that. This is the limitation of Google. Sorry. So yeah, Ambreen's going to add it to the links, okay? So we can still do the class without you having your own set of the index cards, but it's I think it's a kind of a cool little takeaway for you. In that scientific paper, there's one of the first tables, table 1, defines categories of prompt patterns and the prompt patterns themselves. We're going to look at just a few of them. The persona pattern and the audience persona and gameplay are if only we learned 3 prompt patterns today, those are really super powerful. Let's just dive right in. The persona pattern. So the persona pattern is a prompt that involves crafting a prompt that asks the generative AI to generate responses that align with the characteristics, preferences, and goals of a designated persona. So that sounds kind of complicated, but simply put, in the farther column, act as persona A and provide outputs that persona A would create. So you could pretend you are Shakespeare and explain generative AI in a sonnet, or just pretend you're Shakespeare and explain generative AI. If any of you have got a GPT open in another window, go ahead and try this prompt and put in your own variables, and you can just put in the chat whatever cool results you get, and we'll just get things noisy and interactive here. The audience persona pattern is kind of the cousin to the persona pattern, but we flip it around. In this case, the audience persona pattern tailors the prompts to simulate conversations with a specific target audience or demographic, guiding the generative AI to generate responses that resonate with the characteristics, preferences, and needs of the designated persona. So explain topic X to persona B. So for instance, I could say, explain ChatGPT to my 90-year-old mother from Scotland. We could combine persona pattern and audience persona pattern and say, explain ChatGPT to my mother in the voice of the Scottish poet Robert Burns. Yeah, so yes. Yes, that is a type Karen, that is indeed the type of persona pattern. Yeah. So I'm going to try and give you all these bits and pieces and move fairly fast with this. The gameplay pattern you will love as an educator because it's, you know, large language models love to play and they love to interact with you. They're very fun robots. The gameplay pattern structures prompts to engage users or learners in interactive experiences reminiscent of gaming, often incorporating elements such as challenges, rewards, and progression to foster engagement and motivation. So we could do something like, say, let's create a game where you score me on my ability to identify words that are misspelled or not. Based upon my responses, adjust the level of difficulty accordingly. That's sort of an extra bonus to it. But there's a million ways that we can get a large language model to play a game with us. I'll just go to the next slide. Like I say, it's like a dog that wants to chase a Frisbee. I gave ChatGPT 3.5 a very, very simple prompt. Let's create a game where you score me on my ability to identify words that are misspelled. That's all I said. ChatGPT comes back and says, absolutely, let's play a game where I present you with a series of words and you'll teach me if each word is spelled correctly or if it's misspelled. And after you provide your answer, I'll let you know if you're correct and score your performance. Are you ready to begin? Isn't this cool? It's waiting for me. It's like, so I say, yes, great. Here's your first word, and so on. And we have this game going, and it's I fast forward to the end and got to tally up my score, and it said I got out of 10 words, I identified 4 correctly. I went fast. Spelling can be tricky, but your performance shows improvement. If you'd like to play again or have another questions, please feel free to let me know. Isn't that amazing? It it is a really fun friend, and I think that planting that seed in your minds, you can think of a lot of different ways that this could be employed. I'm just going to add one more to this set of things. The cognitive verifier pattern or prompt improvement is a really cool one. It's a pattern that involves generating additional questions that, when answered collectively, help verify or address an overall question or problem. So say I want to solve problem X, ask me 10 questions to get me thinking about problem X. I will give answers, summarize a solution based upon my answer. So here's something. What if you were tasked with having to create, to book a destination wedding for your best friend, and you've never done anything like this before? So we could combine some of these patterns, get the GPT to act as the ultimate wedding planner, and I could tell the large language model maybe just a little bit about myself, like I'm an artist, I'm a musician, and so ask me 10 questions to get me thinking about how I can help my friend plan a destination wedding. It will spit out some really great stuff. It's like, I got into a thing where I got into this conversation with the large language model, and we came up with a pretty great place to go for a wedding. I should have kept that conversation. We were going to go to Italy, just like the second season of White Lotus, but without the without the intrigue. Let me move along here. So yes, I was talking about combining patterns. So again, combining the persona pattern with the audience persona pattern is one type of combination of patterns. Persona A explains topic X to persona B. Or let's make a game, here are the rules of the game, that teaches topic X to persona C. Progressive refinement is a really important part of working with a large language model. You start out by providing facts and context. This is called context control. And then you have to think about getting into a dialogue with a large language model and have a feedback loop going with it, because it's not always going to give you perfect outputs, as I was saying before. So progressively refining your prompts and building upon the history of prompts you have entered is the totally legit way of working with the large language model. How's my time? 12:04. Okay, so here's some more prompt patterns to get you thinking. The chain of thought prompting or output customization, or what we call reasoning and showing. So this is kind of a cool sort of problem-solving methodology where you show your work to the large language model and explain your reasoning and tell it how you solve problems. So this chain of thought prompting is a prompt engineering technique that aims to improve the large language model's performance on tasks requiring logic, calculation, and decision-making by structuring the input prompt in a way that mimics your human reasoning. So to abbreviate that, we would tell the large language model, here's my process for achieving X. I tackled it by performing A, B, and C. Now I need assistance in solving Y using a similar approach. So kind of abstract, but this could be used in a number of ways. So recipe pattern is kind of a similar cousin to this one, and would be great for the peanut butter and jelly sandwich example as well. So users often want a large language model to analyze a concrete sequence of steps or procedures to achieve a stated outcome. Typically, users generally know or have an idea of what the end goal should look like, in this case, a peanut butter sandwich, for instance. But what the end goal should look like and what ingredients belong in the prompt. However, they may not necessarily know the precise ordering of steps to achieve that end goal. So we can talk to the large language model. We can say, I would like to achieve X. I know that I need to perform these steps, A, B, and C, provide a complete sequence of steps for me, fill in any missing steps, identify any unnecessary steps. This is a very simple and effective way of sorting out your thinking of a particular process. Meta language creation sounds really, really complicated, but or sounds kind of cryptic, but it's not. Many problems and structures or other ideas communicated in a prompt may be more concisely or unambiguously or clearly expressed in a language other than English or whatever conventional human language is used to interact with a large language model. To produce outputs based on an alternate language, however, the large language model needs to understand the language semantics. So you can actually teach the semantics or a shorthand to the large language model. This is almost like creating hotkeys. It's possible to give an input to the large language model to give it a shorthand to work with. So when you say X, I mean Y, or I would like you to do Y. So you can get it to perform tasks based on just a single hotkey. Fantastic. This is just programming with natural language. The question, I'm going to just zoom through these because I want to get to the advanced ones that I want to give you. I'm going to get you trying some stuff out. The question refinement pattern, again, this is a little bit like the one I said before. Within scope X, suggest a better version of the question to use instead. So for instance, like I used to work in a guitar store and people would, I need audio visual help. I'm giving a lecture and I need a microphone so they can hear me. What do I ask for the AV rental store for? The large language model, like let's just, oh no, I can't do it right now. So if the user is asking a question, it's possible they're not an expert in the domain and may not know the best way to phrase the question or be aware of additional information helpful in phrasing the question. LLMs will often state limitations on the answer they are providing or request additional information to help them produce a more accurate answer. So I don't know, let's think of some examples of like how we do this. Is like, I need to get a job as a forklift operator. My resume needs work. I need this. Can you, oh, no, that's the other one. Oh, yes. Okay. So, sorry, I kind of got lost in my notes. Brain fart. Yes. So you can ask simple questions and then ask more. It will refine your questions to improve your thinking in a way. So this is like, a brainstorming friend kind of prompt pattern. Flipped interaction pattern is kind of what the game pattern will do in effect, but the goal of the flipped interaction pattern is to flip the interaction of the flow of the large language model so it asks you questions to achieve some desired goal. The large language model can often better select the format, number, and content of the interactions to ensure that the goal is reached faster, more accurately, and or by using knowledge that the user may not initially possess. So here we go. I would like you to ask me questions to achieve X. You should ask questions until this condition is met or to achieve this goal, alternatively or forever. And optionally, ask me the questions one at a time, two at a time, etc. So there's many versions of flipped interaction, but it's a really great way of jamming with the large language model and getting it to ask you questions and getting it to get you thinking. Lastly, the template, which in some cases the output must be produced in a precise format that is application or use specific and not known to the large language model. Since the large language model is not aware of the template structure, it must be instructed on what the format is and where the different parts of its output should go. And this should take the form of a sample data structure. So sorry, this one's a little heady that's being generated. A series of form letters for instance, being filled in. So I'm going to provide a template for your output. X is my placeholder for the content, and try to fit the output into one or more of the placeholders that I list. Please preserve the formatting and overall template that I provide. This is the template pattern with placeholders. So this is a way that you could take a whole, like a messy list of names and addresses and facts and get the large language model to assemble and order and structure data for you. I know that's a little abstract, but now we're going to get into some patterns that you can use as instructors. These are a little more complex than the ones that I've shown right now. So I kind of raced through it because I'm trying to give you a bit of a lexicon of recipes here that you can play around with. So these are prompts for innovative teaching. This comes from Dr. Jules's class. I'm going to give you 5 sort of mega prompts for example generation, activity generation, generating solution approaches, on-demand practice, and for creating pre-assessments. So first of all, example generation is really kind of fun. So your instructions are anywhere that you see a placeholder like fill in a list of concepts, please provide the requested information in the prompt. For example, if it says fill in a list of concepts, you can replace the placeholder with something like basic arithmetic operations. So that sounds very abstract, but think of this. Create examples of basic arithmetic operations that are expressed in terms of student interests. Say your student is young and is interested in Pokemon. Maybe they're interested in World Cup soccer. So this is a great way of creating quizzes and exams and that are tailored to a persona's interests and abilities and abilities. Did I say that twice? Yes. So create examples of concept 1 and concept 2 that are expressed in terms of list student interests. So here again, we could do create examples of let's say reptile biology and bird biology that are expressed in terms of Pokemon and help explain the difference between the two concepts. It's a great way of pulling in a whole lexicon of information that is known to a persona and then teaching them a new concept. Lastly, create examples of concept 1 where there are special circumstances or exceptions to the rule. I know this is like pretty intense stuff. Activity generation. This one is really great. Create 4 sample hands-on activities to learn about, let's say, geography, using a list of physical materials. So this could be potentially like helping you build a lesson plan for in a classroom where there is physical materials. Those physical materials just might be an internet search, for instance, or they could be paper, cardboard, plasticine, markers, some basic art supplies. So here we could maybe Create 4 sample hands-on activities to learn about volcanoes using some basic art materials in a public school classroom. Or create 3 possible games that students could play to learn about world geography, for instance. And perhaps your class are fascinated by World Cup soccer. So something like World Cup soccer would be a great partner for that, to teach geography and using materials in the classroom. So it might be Google search or something like that, or it could be physical materials. I'll get through these. Solution approaches. So fill in a list of concepts, and you can replace the placeholder with something like math. So for instance, provide me with 10 different possible approaches to solving fill in a problem. So building a brick wall, there could be multiple different ways to build a brick wall, for instance. What are the resources available to solve the problem? Hopefully we have bricks and mortar. Or this could be applied to numerous problem solving and solution generating approaches. Provide me with 10 different possible approaches to solving fill in the problem description using resources available. Compare the pros and cons of the approaches relative to my goal and fill in the overall goal. So sorry, I'm running out of energy here. But oh yes, okay, sorry. Have a good day, Wanda. I'm going to get you through a couple more here, and then we'll have a little bit of time to play, because I go to 12:30, so it's 12. We'll have 15 minutes to sort of play around, and I'll be able to ask your questions. I'm trying to give you a lot of information here and a lot of bits and pieces to play around with, and then I'll get interactive with you. Okay, so bear with me for another couple of slides. So on-demand practice. This is a really great one for an interactive learning experience. Anywhere that you see a placeholder like fill in a list of concepts, please provide the requested information in the prompt. For example, if it says fill in a list of concepts, you can replace the placeholder with something like math concepts, geography. Example prompts. We're learning about, what could we be learning about? We're learning about income tax. Please create a quiz for me based on these concepts and fill in student interest. So maybe we get something. My interest is being a freelance artist. Perhaps we could create an exercise for me about how I could learn how to do my income taxes better as a freelance artist. Here we are. Generate 10 sample problems based on fill in a list of concepts that are expressed in terms of fill in student interest. Again, this is kind of, again, that sort of thing where like you have a persona with their interests and their knowledge. And so these are all fairly similar. The last one, creating pre-assessments. This is really cool. This is a really good interactive one. If for instance, if a student is writing an essay and there is a rubric for that, how that essay is going to be marked, we can fill in the rubric into an initial prompt and teach the large language model how this essay is going to be marked. Then we could enter our essay into the large language model and have the large language model mark us and give us suggestions of how to improve. So for instance, we might be writing an essay about Shakespearean England. Fill in, so that would be your list of concepts. Please provide the requested information in the prompt. For example, if it says fill in a list of concepts, you can replace the placeholder with something like math or Shakespearean England. The following example requires the teacher to first fill in the rubric and then provide the customized prompt to students. This rubric can be used to help create an initial draft of feedback for a teacher to edit and then provide to a student. So example, using the following rubric, provide me suggestions to improve my work relative to each area of assessment. Do not give me answers, simply give me hints as to what to improve. Isn't this cool? It's like you're asking the large language model to be a teacher and a teaching tool, not give you the complete answer, but help give you suggestions. So number 2, we've been studying about Shakespeare in England, for instance. Using the following rubric, provide me suggestions of concepts that I should review to improve my work. Do not give me answers, simply give me a list of concepts to review. So this can, again, this is a great interactive learning tool that creates a situation where there's a dialogue with the large language model. Let's see what my next slide is. Is there any questions? Right, I've been like going really like flat out long. Would anyone like to ask any questions? Just unmute yourself, and I hope I haven't confused you.
So how much of a rubric can you put in to these? Like how vast?
How massive a rubric?
Yes.
I
Yes.
think that you can give it a pretty complex rubric. The example that Dr. White used was just like a sort of a simple one where like so a rubric for like an English exam or an English essay or something like that might contain style, factuality. So I mean, so you would like put those percentages and say, here's the rubric for the exam, go. So it's it's only limited to the number of tokens that you put into the input prompt, I believe. Did that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
I think probably in the index cards that I created for you, I've made the last 5 the sort of mega prompts. And I think they'll probably, these last 5 are probably the most useful to all of you, I think. There is indeed a lot of options for what you can do with the large language model. It's really just up to your imagination. The patterns that I'm showing you are the ones that Dr. White and his students came up with, but you're not limited to that lexicon of prompts. You can make up your own prompts. It really comes back to what I was saying before about brevity, economy, and efficiency, and using natural language in an effective, efficient way to speak to the large language model. I'm gonna zip ahead to my closing thoughts. I hope that you will be able to take away the catalog that I gave you of prompts and mull it over and play around with this. I'm gonna make sure that you have my contact information through Ambreen, so if you have any questions, you'll be able to email me. I'm really hoping that this little workshop will spark the fire for you to take AI fluency to your learners. I want to talk about something that Dr. White is very passionate about, is the idea of artificial intelligence being more like an augmentation to our intelligence rather than an artificial brain. He talks about artificial intelligence like an exoskeleton for our mind that extends our abilities. It is, and as Jason and Lindy discussed, it is a great tool for ideation and creativity. It's not great at creating facts, but it is a great partner in terms of creativity and brainstorming. It's definitely a great tool for literacy learning. I can tell you as an artist myself, what the most helpful thing that I've been able to use ChatGPT for is it's helped me with my creative writing. It's helped clean up my creative writing. It's helped me sort of organize my thoughts. It's helped me create educational materials for my students in my podcasting class. We used ChatGPT to create a 5-minute script of a pretend podcast that where a goldfish interviewed a series of house pets about their preferences of sports. And it was exactly 5 minutes long. It was really funny. And we were able to create a little in-house podcast using Zoom with that script. I've been using ChatGPT to create quizzes for my students, and I use it to make slides. In fact, all the images that you've seen in this presentation were created with DALL-E, which is the generative AI image generator that comes with GPT-4. ChatGPT 4.0 is fantastic. Give it a try if you want to just like get a membership for a month, because it has got some incredible tools. And the potential for developing custom GPTs is very, very fascinating to me, that you can, because as we've been talking about, large language models are limited in their data set, but when you are able to you're able to upload files, you increase its intelligence and update its knowledge to have specific information and have your data and work with your data in a very individualized way. The ongoing development of AI is moving fast. It's not going away. So we're just going to have to just run and keep catching up with it. Hopefully the information that I've given you today will allow you to harness it and hopefully demystify it for you. And you'll be able to adopt artificial intelligence, generative AI, as a tool for building personalized learning experiences in your practice. So thanks for your time today. I have some resources. You'll all get my slides. If there was one piece of public policy that we need to implement in AI, what would it be? I think we should save that for a group question. I think Lindy and Jason would like to weigh on that. For me, I would say we need to. Well, I think the biggest problem with AI is its biases. But a piece of public policy, not sure what my answer to that is. Anyways, here's some additional learning for you. It's in my slides. I took I took a number of courses through Coursera. They were with Dr. Jules White at Vanderbilt. So there are his classes were for prompt engineering for ChatGPT, trustworthy generative AI, supporting innovative teaching with ChatGPT, which is where I got the last 5 prompts. An introduction to ChatGPT, advanced data analysis. So I'd love to come back and show you more about the advanced data analysis capabilities of ChatGPT 4.0, what you can do when you add your own data. There's the link to Coursera if you want to do any further teaching there, and a bunch of links for you, that bunch of articles and stuff that you may find interesting. So, all right. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up here. And that'll give us some more extra time for, if you don't mind, that'll give you some more time for Q&A. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing here.
Thank you, Violet.
Okay, so share screen. I have to go. How do I stop sharing my screen?
At the bottom, there's
Stop share.
yeah.
Okay, I just need to close this. Uh-oh, no. Pause share there. Okay, stop share. Did that work? Okay, all right.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Violet. Lots and lots of prompting and wonderful ideas. So before we go into the Q&A, just a reminder that there is a poll. We're going to put up the poll. Please complete the poll before you leave. Unfortunately, I know some people had to leave, but those that are still here, if you can complete the poll first, as we're going to be doing the Q&A, but before you leave, complete the poll. And it's open forum now to Q&A with Violet and Lindy, as well as Jason. I believe he's going to pop back in, hopefully. Is Jason still with us? I'm bringing the poll is
I
up.
don't see him.
Yeah, I don't see him either.
Okay, we can do the poll after the question answers.
Okay, so
Q&A?
before leaving, please do the poll. So, I don't know, Lindy, would you like to answer Bernadette's question in the chat that Violet started?
Yeah, I put a few links in the chat.
Yeah, so public policy that we need to implement about AI, and what would that look like, or what would it be?
Yeah, there's tons of questions about this, and every country is approaching it differently. So I gave you a couple links in the chat. The EU is kind of leading the charge on what would be considered probably the most regulations and policy. So I put a link into that to the EU AI Act that kind of goes through the approach that they're taking. On the opposite end of the spectrum, Japan has taken the perspective, and they have said that in terms of copyright specifically, they are not saying that basically any company can use any data to train an AI, and that data is not subjected to copyright. So the EU is kind of like over here saying like, yes, copyright is a thing. Japan's over here. The US is kind of taking like a middle of the road approach, although there haven't been any specific policies or regulations in the US. So it really just depends. Some people are really focused on copyright, other people really focused on ethics. There's a congressman in the US that just, and I put a link to this as well, just did a bill about AI literacy and the importance of basically requiring public schools to have a plan for teaching AI literacy. So it's like with every new technology, you have disruption. AI is very disrupting in so many different ways, and everyone is focusing on like a different thing when it comes to policy, whether it be copyright, AI literacy, bias. So I don't have a great answer, but hopefully that gives you a place to kind of explore the differing points of view across the world.
Thank you. Any other questions? This has been so much information to take in, and we'll have to decompress. But amazing stuff. And like you say, everything is going by, when I say you, I mean all our facilitators. It's just so quick changing.
Yes. One thing that you can count on is that the skills that you're learning in prompt engineering you're gonna need those for a long time. We will always need to be able to speak to large language models with efficiency and effective language. And the more brief and the more effective we are at communicating with a large language model, the better outputs we're going to get. So that etiquette, that's never going to go away. So learning these rudiments, it's like when a drummer learns to play drums. They don't start out on the Neil Peart drum kit with 1 million drums. They start with 2 sticks and a snare drum. And what we looked at today was just those rudiments, and those rudiments will always provide you a solid foundation. And
yeah, and I was gonna add during my session, and I ran out of time, kind of building on this idea of AI literacy. When I asked you guys to define literacy as literacy practitioners, one of the main things was communication, right? And its ability to communicate. I know a lot of really smart people that know way more about AI than me that are all saying that one of the #1 transferable, durable skills, whatever you want to call it, there's a million different names, soft skills going into the AI age is communication, because our whole world is going to be focused around being able to communicate the right input to get the right output as fast as we can from AI. And that's prompt engineering 101 that Violet just gave you, right? We're communicating to the AI what we want, that's our input, to get the desired output of what we want. So that communication, you guys have, I think as literacy practitioners, especially if you're adding in that AI literacy piece, so much job security going into the AI age.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it's gonna like AI literacy is gonna be as important as learning how to use MS Word. You know,
It already is,
it already is. Yeah, you know, I mean,
in my opinion.
and talk like, okay, remember when these came out? I got this for my Christmas present in 1980. It's a Texas Instruments solar powered calculator. And it struck fear in the hearts of teachers because people were gonna cheat on their math. This is kind of where we are right now with AI. It's like we're just at the start of it, you know?
There's a question. Are there any resources that you would recommend for total beginners learning about AI and how to build upon this particular workshop today?
I say honestly, just exactly, and that's the reason we started when we discussed this training for today. That's why Jason started with just getting you into the tools. Like just go in, and that was another reason why we want to give you those rules of thumb so you feel comfortable and safe going in and just start exploring and using. It's the best way to learn and understand, and the technology is moving so fast that it has to be a constant, and it's going to help you figure out when and how to integrate this technology into your world, into your teaching, into teaching your students how to use it responsibly.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I know Jason just joined. Jason, there's your son.
Yes,
Are there
I
any
now have more people with me.
Are there any resources you are aware of for individuals who are just starting AI?
Yeah, so I do think that the trick more than anything else, give me 1 second, so I don't actually set an alarm off, is, as already mentioned, you know, really just playing with it. So, and this is going to seem sort of weird. So one of the things I recommend, if you're really getting started, first thing, you know, pick one. I would say, you know, because there are all these lists about different, give me a second, buddy, about these different programs to like play with and try. But pick one model. I personally recommend ChatGPT, and this might have been mentioned already, because it is a workhorse. There is a lot that you can do with it. So play with that. And then once you do that, I would say, social media. So if you have, you know, a LinkedIn account or something like that, you might find that people share very, very frequently there as well. There are a lot of different frameworks. So once you kind of get used to and just to play with it a little bit, I would say look around at that. So one thing that has really, really helped me are newsletters, right? They are such a wealth of information. So one of my favorites is, and I can send the link for this, is Ethan Mollick's One Useful Thing. So this is the kind of thing where you could, you know, take a look at it, take 5 minutes, read through it on a given week, and get a lot of information. And if you go online, and you can easily just search this and look for, you know, newsletters on AI and whatever you're interested in. So top newsletters like AI in education. So I have one, so Ethan Mollick is a great one. And there's one by Mark Watkins, which I love. He literally just looks at AI in education and language learning and everything. But if you just do a quick Google search, I recommend subscribing to like 3 or 4 newsletters, because that's going to be a really, really useful source of information. And the nice thing about newsletters is you might be able to give yourself, say, 10 to 15 minutes on a given day and skim through a bunch of them and learn a lot of different things. So that's what I would recommend, because I think that if we just go and like play with a lot of tools, that's sort of overwhelming. If we try to learn everything all at once, that's overwhelming. So my personal process is go in, play with the tool for a few hours, just test it out, look for some newsletters, subscribe, and just get like those chunks of information. That I think is the easiest way in.
Thank you. So a few comments in the chat about calculators. Our calculator is less likely to give you different results. And
There are two other questions as well
yeah.
from Karen. Can you talk about AI in the context of critical pedagogy?
Did you want me to say more? I just added to my comment there. I'm just saying, I just feel like I'm very interested in what everybody's showing today and really appreciate it. It was really informative. But I feel I was a few minutes late finding the link, but I can't imagine that a fulsome philosophical discussion took place in those first 10 minutes that I missed. And I feel like we've just gone straight into a conversation about using AI and here's how to do it and these fun, cool things. And I do like those things. I do tend to be an adopter of tech things in my teaching, but I don't feel like it is just like the calculator that you showed a moment ago, in the sense that I'm so conscious that when people talk about AI these days, we have to now constantly sort of define our own humanity in those conversations. And we never had to do that before. You know, we never had to say, and this was a human that did this, or and this is where a human could insert their input or their creativity. And, you know, I see myself in that kind of Freirean literacy tradition, you know, reading the word and the worlds and all of that, right? Like, to me, that's really important in social justice. And that's the reason I do literacy. So I want to understand AI in that context. You know, as a beginning, I would say for me, one reason I would want to do this in my teaching is so that the people that we work with, who are so highly marginalized in so many ways, that they're not excluded. You know, this is the way things are going. And I don't want people to be excluded. And so I don't want for myself to be a barrier, my resistance, let's say, to be a barrier, but I don't want to be without resistance either, because I just feel like I want us to have that conversation. Maybe we don't have time to have it today, but I wanted to put it out on the table.
Yeah, I'll add a couple 2 cents here. When we were planning this, the focus was on getting you guys in and the how to and how to use it for multiple reasons. But one big reason being that we can't have those conversations that are critically important that you just brought up, Karen, if we don't understand the technology. And if you can't understand the technology unless you're actively using it and exploring it. I've been talking to a lot of people as I try to unpack this technology and the effects it's having on society and education, that know a ton, that are ones creating the AI. And I ask every single one of them, like, how can we, what can we do wrong here? And every single one of them has said, ignore it and don't use it. That's the only way that we can do this wrong. Because if you ignore it and you don't actively use it, again, you don't understand it and you can't have those conversations. And it's big conversations. It's disruption, huge disruption.
I 100%, well, I just want to say I 100% agree with that. That is why I'm here, and know the enemy or something, I guess. Not completely. Like, it's not, I could see a lot of benefits from many of those tools to learners, really benefit, just like I've seen in many other forms of tech. So I say that a bit tongue in cheek, but yeah, I totally agree with that. I just think we could so quickly not have the other conversation.
Yeah,
So
and I want to
adding-
jump in there too, and I'm just going to be as forthright as I possibly can. So I totally agree that if we ignore AI, I think it's going to really ruin education. And what I mean by that is that I think there's going to be then such a large divide between what's happening in the classroom and what students are doing at work. So, they're going to be using AI. So I think that if we ignore AI, it's going to ruin it. But the other side is, and this I think is coming out, if we uncritically adopt AI, we will also ruin education. Right? That I do think it is a matter of finding that balance. And I personally think that, especially over the last couple of weeks, whether we wanted to be there or not, education is front and center of the AI discussion, right? And the companies have made it front and center. So OpenAI and Sam Altman, the CEO of the company, has said this. He's coming for education. It is a profitable space, right? It is a space for AI to be in everything. He's doing it. They also, Khan Academy, right? So they have their Khanmigo bot. They are using AI. They are getting into the educational space. And Google too, if you notice what they're doing, they're working it across their Google Suite, and they are creating these very specifically educational products. So this is one of the reasons why I think educators have to be very, very honest and open, because some of the pedagogy behind these products is not very good. It's just not, right? And that's one of the things that I tell us, that I try to emphasize, that there's all this language of disruption, right? This language of disruption, rethinking things from the bottom up. But at least from my perspective, the principles of good teaching remain unchanged, right? Giving students autonomy, giving students all of the, having personalized learning, which a lot of us are doing anyway, having scenario-based learning, experiential learning, whatever it is, whatever worked 5 years ago, right? What really, really worked based off of learning science, right? The principles themselves, they remain unchanged. All that really has changed for me is the tools that we have, right? And so I think that, at least sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, just going back to a question that Rogue posted in the chat. These are all the tools, and that's the essence, the tools that we can use. But how are those tools? It's kind of like a divide for the economically disadvantaged, as Rogue placed in the chat, for those that have that limited access to technology. So this is a great tool as a level up, but when there's not that base there, right? So it's just something to think about as well, because there is quite a few of our students that do fall within the not having the access or the understanding of even how to use it on a device, even if they did.
Yeah, just to add to that, to my comments around that, it's not only that they don't have access at the moment, but that they historically have not had access. So it's like widening that divide. Is suddenly there's a new technology, but they're not even familiar with the technologies of, maybe the previous decade. And so how do we, and not-for-profits who are teaching adults literacy, they don't have the capacity to provide people with access to technology. So how do we help this important direction in which things are going? How do we help people not be left behind?
It's huge discussion. I don't have the answers. I don't think anybody has the answers when we talk about equity of access. I always tell educators, be an advocate. No matter where you work in education, be an advocate. And exactly, these are the type of conversations that have to be had. We have to reach out to our elected officials and explain to them the importance of equity of access when it comes to technology, not just device, but good broadband internet, right? And the more advanced these AI models get, the more our technology is going to change. This is a whole nother conversation we won't get into right now, but it's a reality. It's already happening. that, you know, we're moving to more like higher powered chips and moving from more cloud-based to local storage because these AI models are so huge now, they can't run in the cloud. So it's already opening up so many conversations. It's just going to get even crazier as the technology changes. So advocate. That's my answer. Be an advocate as an education for equity of access.
But what we can advocate, but we need as practitioners to have that conversation about the critical pedagogy of AI. Because if we just point blank say, okay, this is going to happen, and then we're going to advocate and get the technology, like we've missed the conversation, like that bigger conversation, right? So it has to happen together. And I think we should really, I think that many of us that find ourselves in literacy, that's one of the things that has, you know, my experience in meeting people in literacy has drawn a lot of people, right? Is that we are at that crossroads between the work of social justice and education. And we should keep that in. That's something that we particularly do well in education. You know, we're tapped in to those social inequalities probably more than many other educators. And so we should make sure that we frame our conversations about AI around those things as we are learning, right? As we're getting those tools and passing those things along and making our classroom experiences more fun and all of those things. But I think I'm advocating that we actually situate that conversation really deliberately, that becomes, you know, potentially our act of resistance.
Yeah, and for me, you know, resisting in certain ways is essential. And also, if we're going to have conversations, and those hard conversations, which I think we must have, including as many as we can. One of the things I'm not seeing nearly enough is actually including students in the conversation, like getting them in the room, right? If there's, on an institutional level, if there's a committee, I'm pushing this at my college too. So we have an AI task force now, right? No students. And so I'm sitting there the entire time where if students want to be on it, we should get students. We have to get more and more voices. And historically, they've not been listened to. And this is such an important thing when you think about, you know, this technology, you think about access, we think about social justice, right? Why are we not talking to students, right? That is going to be, you know, my students, whenever I talk to them about this technology, they have so many ideas about, you know, the technology and how to use it, but also the bigger social questions, right? What happens when we have this technology? What happens to human creativity? What happens to the value of the human? What is a human, right? Like, and what does it mean to not have access to these? And what does that do for society? And those are huge conversations. So I think, you know, step number one, have that conversation and really, really include as many different voices as you possibly can, not just educators, but students and administrators, basically whoever will share their perspective. That's what I think anyway.
Yeah, I agree. Having that committee or advisory board, both, whatever you want to call it, at your organization that includes a diverse set of stakeholders, and having the conversation and advocating, like the two things. That's how we start to navigate this new technology and answer those big questions about access and digital divide, equity divide, you know, all of those things that technology and every new technology creates.
Thank you. Wonderful. This is the beginning of more deeper conversations for sure that needs to be done. Well, we're all here and we all have